Welcome back, everybody, to part 3 of our assessment corrections. These are going to be the last 2 pages of the test. Then we should be able to kind of have a fully completed test at that point in time, which can improve your grade. And then if need be, we can talk about kind of what needs to be adjusted further. But that is going to be kind of a great start. So if I'm kind of following closely on these directions, it says determine the parent function f of x, draw the parent function, and the transformed function. So I'm going to do it even in exactly those steps. So if I take a look at g of x, I can see that the function that I'm really transforming, or the parent function that I'm really transforming, is this absolute value of x equation. So then I'm going to hop right into graphing. And this is going to give me kind of a good structure for how I need to transform. So let's see if Notability can handle this straight line. Nice, looks good. So g of x, this is going to be my parent function, or what it should look like. Try again here. Nice. So that is our basic equation that we have then manipulated using these other values. And using those values, we're going to determine the order in which we're manipulating in order to get our finished graph. So in looking at this, I can see that we have an A value, a C value, and a D value that are being adjusted. And then our order of adjustments normally that we kind of follow is CBAD. So I need to say, okay, what is my C value and what's that going to do to my graph? Do I have a B value and what's that going to do? So on and so forth. So from here, I would go down to my steps to transform, and I might just rewrite this equation here so that I have it. So this is negative 2x plus 2 plus 3. And starting along these lines, I'll try to be pretty particular. So this plus 2 is our B value, and that is going to move our graph to the left 2 units. And I might even just complete that task right away on my graph. So I'm going to take every point that I have and move it to the left 2 units. So there's my first graph. The only thing that I did there was move to the left 2 units. And that also takes care of basically my C value. So I took care of that. Now I'm going to choose a new color, and we're going to take a look. So our B value, we don't really have one of those. Our B value in theory is just a 1 in front of that x, but that means it's not going to transform our graph at all. So I'm going to take a closer look at this negative 2 here. And that negative 2 is going to do 2 different things to my equation. First, the fact that it's greater than 1 means that this is going to be a vertical stretch by 2. So every y-coordinate is going to double from what it previously was on that pink graph. And then I'm also going to be reflecting over the x-axis. So I've got 2 different graphs to do. I'll do them both in blue just because it's the same A value that's causing them both to happen. And so the first thing they'll do is a vertical stretch by 2. So all my y-coordinates are going to be double of what they were. And it's nice that I've kind of got this straight line graph because I don't have to do too many before just creating that straight line and going from there. So here I'm doubling all my y-coordinates. Oh, I did such a bad line, it didn't let me do it. There we go. All right, so that is after my vertical stretch by 2. And now if I reflect over the x-axis, I'm just going to take a look at each one of those points and reflect it over. Okay, so now I'm almost to my final graph. The last thing that I need to do, and we'll go with nice little orange color here, is to conduct this D value adjustment. So that D value adjustment is going to be up 3 units. And that's going to be my final graph. So that orange graph is going to be my final graph. So from my last change that I had made, I'm now going to take every point that I have and just move it up 3 units. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So this is kind of g of x. That is g of x. I guess on this first case, since I had already called this f, that'd be a better name for this. So f of x is my parent function. That's that green graph that I started with. And then after all those transformations take place, I end up with g of x, which is that orange equation. Using this orange equation, I can answer the questions down below. So what is the range, or what y values can I hit starting from negative infinity and going up is generally how we want to look at range. So I can only go up until 3. So for my range, I would say that y must be less than or equal to 3. That's the highest one that I can hit. Domain, it has that I in there, so it really means inputs. And starting from negative infinity up, what x values can I hit? I can hit any of them. So different ways to write this. This one's pretty easy, so that is an acceptable answer. I could also say that x could be greater than negative infinity and less than infinity, also works. And then there is the all real numbers kind of way of writing this. That guy should kind of go like that. All right, so that is our 5th page. One more page to go, and then we should be all set. So here I've given us an equation or a graph of f of x, and then we have transformed it using these values here. So similar to our last task, except now we don't have an explicit equation. The equation is really tucked inside of this graph, or we're changing this graph around. So just as like a sidebar, if I have this graph and then I needed to do this, that x plus 2 is very similar. I mean, it's just a transformation where I'm adding on to my x value. So that would end up causing a left by 2 adjustment. So some people got tripped up with this f being in the equation, and it's no different from really the absolute value symbols or anything else that we're kind of transforming around. It's just now we just have a graph that we're transforming instead. So looking at my transformations, I'd probably start by writing out my steps. So my steps here, it looks like, so if I'm doing this in the order of C, B, A, D, so my C value is going to be, am I moving something left or right, which I am in this case. So I am going to be moving this because of that negative 3, this is going to move it to the right 3. And at that same point in time, or actually no, we're going to stop with right 3, so that one's good. Here I have this negative 1 is my B value, so that is going to be a reflect over Y. Reflect over Y-axis because of that negative X. My A value is a 2, so this is going to be a vertical stretch by 2. And then finally I have this minus 3, which is going to be a down 3. So I need to take this initial graph that I have and plot it on this coordinate plane. I might not do the parent function just because, it's right above there, but I will kind of do my first step here, which is to take that graph and move everything to the right by 3. So I had a point at 0, 0, so now that point's going to be over here. This point was 2, 2, so now it's going to be at 5, 2. It's going to be there. This point was at 3, -2, so now it's going to be at 6, -2. And then that last point was 5, 1, so now it's going to be at 8, 1. So my first transformation, and then I had a straight line, and then kind of a curve up to that. That's my first transformation. I moved that graph to the right by 3. Then I'm going to reflect over the x-axis, or sorry, the y-axis, and I'm going to do that in orange. So all of these coordinates are now going to get flipped over this axis. So here I'm going to get -3. This is going to be -5, 2, -6, -2, and -8, 1. And I had straight lines between these first ones, and then this was curving up to that. So now I'm here, completed with that one. Then I'm going to do a vertical stretch by 2. And the vertical stretch is always basically away from the x-axis, or you just take your y values and double them. So -5, 2 is now going to be -5, 4. -6, -2 is now -6, -4, and 8, sorry, -8, 1 is now going to be -8, 2. And this one doesn't move at all. It wasn't any distance away from the y-axis, so it's not going to change in that regard. My first 2 lines are straight lines, and then this was curved up to my final point. So this is now my graph, and then I've got one last kind of stage here to complete, which is I'm going to take that graph and move every point down 3 units. So this point is now here. This point 1, 2, 3 is now here. 1, 2, 3 here. And then taking the purple graph, 1, 2, 3, there. First 2 lines are straight, so straight line, curved line. So this is kind of my final graph. And this is g of x. Domain and range of that transformed function. So domain and range, so if I just cover the domain, I can only go between these 2 x values. So if I want to report that as easy as possible, I'd go from -8 as an x value up until -3. And then my range is the y values, so that looks like from here to there, so that'd be from -7 to 1. All right, so that should complete the assessment. Hopefully you've been able to correct and improve, and maybe there are some additional questions that you might have, but that is kind of going to be the first step towards a retake, would be correcting what we have, and then if we need to further discuss grade improvement, we can definitely do that. Thanks.